Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another JC Talks podcast.
Today we'll be interviewing the Zesty founder and CEO, James Fayal.
We are also having this month's tea giveaway this episode.
To enter, go into the link down below in the description. Please like the video and subscribe to the channel.
Now on to the podcast. And now we are interviewing James Fayal. So, James, let's cut right to the chase. What inspired you to get into the tea business?
Sure. So I was working in venture capital coming out of college, working really long hours, sort of bottom of the totem pole at this firm, but was also a pretty avid tea drinker. And so I would drink tea the first 6 or 8 hours of the day to sort of stay focused. And then at some point I'd realize, I've got 6 or 8 hours more work to do. So I'd usually switch over to some pretty awful coffee that we had at the office, or, go down to the local convenience store and get some heavily sweetened energy drink. And didn't really like making that compromise. So I started playing around with the idea of developing a lighter and healthier and hopefully tea-based energy and focus product. So that's sort of what led me towards Zesty as a product, and started it out with a small crowdfunding campaign. And over the next 6 months or so, ended up shipping out to the funders from the crowdfunding campaign.
That's a great story, and it's super interesting how you solved a problem. And I'm actually drinking Zesty right now, and it's delicious.
Oh, great to hear. I appreciate that.
So, Callum, you have a question?
Yes, I do. So I have a question, and that is what education and training helped to get you where you are today?
Sure. It's a great question. I don't know if there is a clear answer, because I think, everything I did dating back to, even high school sort of played into it. I started my first mini company while I was in high school, and also sort of ran a couple sort of summer job. It's hard to even call them a company, but mowing lawns. We used to live on the water and around a lot of boats. I would clean boat bottoms, and very rarely did I sort of work for somebody else on salary. I sort of created my own ways to make money, and I usually, for that age, did pretty well. Allowed me to sort of play around with a lot of other ideas. So there was sort of an entrepreneurial mindset from pretty early on. I then went to the University of Maryland and studied finance. And, I think having a pretty good understanding of finance and cash flow and all those kind of things is super helpful. It's something I think you can learn, but a lot of people try to sort of avoid it when they start a business, and that can sort of be a death wish for a business, because a lot of companies just run out of cash because they don't understand their finances. So more than anything, I think the important thing is just being creative. Being curious for, years and years, and looking for new opportunities. But 95% of what I use on a day-to-day basis at Zest is something that I learned while building Zest. So I don't think education, for the most part, is something that should stop somebody from pursuing something, because it's safe to assume you don't yet know what you're going to need to know, and you're going to have to learn it on the job either way.
Yeah, that's super interesting. And finances are 100% super important in a business, but also you really started this company out of an idea, and it went really, really well. So how did you promote your business when you just started out?
Sure. So the crowdfunding was actually a pretty helpful tool. We had a couple hundred funders or whatever, and we had no money to do any real marketing, paid marketing, social marketing, digital advertising, anything like But we did have a product that had a pretty strong word of mouth effect. And, for the first 6 months or so, I could pretty well relate every customer back to one of our original funders, whether it's a friend, a coworker, a family member, something like that, because the company was still early enough that, I really did communicate with the vast majority of our customers in one way or another. And, I was able to sort of figure out, oh, this is how you found out about the product. So word of mouth was the key driver of the business in the early days. Later on, we brought the product onto Amazon, which is really a discovery platform more than anything. About 60% of product searches start on Amazon, not Google. So nailing down, call it the SEO of both Amazon and Google, and knowing how to get the product in front of people searching for certain things, what we really relied on, because, there wasn't much in the way of, Facebook ads or anything like that we could afford. So it had to be essentially all very cheap or word of mouth or free.
Yeah, and that's great how you just started it from the ground up, and you didn't have to spend very much money because you did with friends, family, others. That's a great way to start a business. Callum, do you have another question?
Yeah, I do. So, I really like what you're saying about how you started your business and all that. But I have another question, and that is, what is your favorite kind of tea?
I'm a big chai guy. I love a good chai. I like something. I'm a big flavor guy when it comes to everything, beverage, food, whatever. And the spiciness, sometimes the sweetness of chais, are my personal, I should say masala chais are my personal favorite. Anybody on my team will sort of tell you that I'm the guy always pushing various chai flavors and promoting. We have one iced tea chai flavor and one hot tea chai flavor that the hot tea I have literally every morning, and the iced tea I have pretty frequently as well. So yeah, I would definitely go with a really great Indian masala chai.
Yeah, it's really cool and how you have your favorite tea flavor. And how do you develop new blends, and how do you taste tea for zesty and developing these delicious flavors?
Sure. So it's a long process. It takes 5 to 6 months before we come out with a new product. A lot of it is sort of ear to the ground with customers, listening to what they're interested in, what flavor profiles they think we're missing. We're talking to our customers every day. So that's sort of the beginning of the process. We also keep an ear to the ground on the market and talk to, our suppliers, our partners, what flavor profiles are they seeing do really well. So that sort of creates the top of the funnel. And then we will send out surveys to some of our key customers that are sort of our brand ambassadors, to ask them which of these flavor profiles are they most interested in. Once we get a list down to maybe 3 different flavors, we'll start working with blending partners and flavoring partners to, develop some test blends. Then they go out to customers to test, and then we iterate on them, and then we send them back out to customers. And, it's this constant back and forth process. But, our goal is that when we come out with a product, it's pretty well polished. It's especially for a retail product. Once it makes it onto retail shelves, it's very hard to sort of change out a product once it's out there. That being said, we are working on ways of having a sort of faster turnaround time using our online sales channels, where we'll have a new flavor come out about once a month. Still based on all this back and forth with customers and everything like that, but it will give us a chance to test new flavors, hear from, hundreds of people that try it, what they think, and, if any of them are a real hit, we'll bring them back after a while to be full-time flavors.
I also have another question for you, and that is, what innovations in the tea industry are you excited about?
Sure. So there's a major shift in the tea industry towards more functional products, and it's definitely a sort of industry trend in beverage and food as a whole. So you're seeing a lot of products come to the market that, whether it's energy and focus like Zest, or, something to help you sleep, or one of a million different functional benefits. You're seeing companies sort of build around those functionalities. And I do see Zest as we sort of grow and expand, even expanding, what functionalities we build products for. Right now, most of it is energy and focus. And, we'd like to eventually sort of think past that into, new functional products.
That's great. And I definitely really like how you have the zesty focused and on these different flavors, because they really do help in like energy and focus. I really think that is very true and sticks to its name. What has been your biggest aha moment with Zesty, and do you have any fun facts about Zesty?
That's an interesting question. I think the biggest sort of aha moments we've had were jumping into the retail market and learning how complicated and difficult of a market that was. We waited 3-4 years before making that jump, and it was definitely a surprise, because we thought we sort of knew our product and our customer and everything like that so well, but you pretty quickly learn when you're going into a new market that there's this whole other world that you have to learn. So I think that was pretty eye-opening for us. When I talk to young entrepreneurs in the space, I always try to push them to go direct to consumer to start, at least. It just gives you a lot more leeway. It's a lot less expensive. You can learn really quickly and have a more direct relationship with our customer base. But as far as an interesting fact about Zest, I guess one of them would be that even though the vast majority of our customers know us as an online brand, products in about 2,500 stores across the United States now.
Yeah, that's very cool and interesting. And what was the biggest challenge with your company? What was the biggest waste of money?
I heard a good quote from somebody else in the industry at one point saying that what differentiates the winners from the losers is you definitely have to do a lot of things right, but not screwing up, not making major screw ups has a bigger impact on the company, because a major screw up can have a 6-month, year, multi-year, 100,000. In this company's case that I'm thinking about, it was $1 million, mistake. And that single-handedly can kill a company. So, where we've made expensive mistakes, we've made packaging mistakes where we've really invested in a certain type of packaging. Specifically, I have one in mind for retail that it's not that it didn't sell in retail. It was a version of the pouches that we sell online, and we tried to bring those to retail, and they just kept falling over each other, and they were just really bad for shelf placement, and that was, I don't know how many tens of thousands of dollars we spent on, that packaging, that most of which ended up, getting recycled, and we lost all that money. And, but other mistakes is we've had some partners that, we thought were really good for what's called brokerage. They're people that help you get into retail. And frankly, we have a sort of work hard, fast, efficient culture. And if you don't have partners that align with that, they can really slow you down. And these guys just didn't really produce at the level that we hoped that they would. And, not only did it cost us tens of thousands of dollars based off of the relationship, but, probably set us back 6 months or a year in getting new retailers, and God knows how many, hundreds of thousands of dollars that cost us. So yeah, we've made mistakes. Everybody does when they run a business.
Yeah, that's super interesting, and how the life of a business goes, and how there's all mistakes, and mistakes are really, it helps you grow. And then to kind of add on to that question, so challenges, how's the pandemic affected Zesty?
Sure, it's been a mixed bag. We've had some retailers that have, sold more. We've had some retailers that have sold less. Some retailers, one comes to mind as Whole Foods, is very protective about how many people they have in their stores at any given time, and that cut, through traffic in some of their stores by, I don't know, 25, 50%, and we're going to see that flow through to our sales. So, there were some downsides of that. That being said, direct to consumer is still over 50% of our revenue, and direct to consumer for us, as is true for a lot of people in the industry, has done very well over the pandemic. As you can imagine, people are shopping online more than they're going into stores. So, all things considered, I think it was pretty neutral on the sales side. It creates other complications. Partners are harder to get a hold of. They're learning how to run their businesses remotely, and that has issues. Fundraising is tough in a global pandemic, obviously, but all in all, I'd say it's a relatively neutral effect on the company. We got lucky that way.
Yeah, I think that's really cool. And what is your biggest goal for Zest Tea?
My goal has always been to build a company that is impactful, I like to say, and there's a lot of ways to be impactful. I think you can be impactful. I'm sitting here on the harbor of Baltimore, on the boardwalk of that goes around the harbor, and I'm staring at Under Armour. And I've the founder of Under Armour went to the University of Maryland, and Under Armour is a big sort of proponent of the Baltimore area. Headquartered here, biggest hirer in the area, and they've had an impact just by sort of becoming this substantial force in their industry that people love, people know, has single-handedly made an impact on the city of Baltimore. And that's one way of being impactful. Other companies are impactful through philanthropic endeavors, Tom's Shoes, those kind of companies, and I think that's another way a company can be impactful. But I want to make a dent, and to I think the first step, in regardless of how you're impactful, is sort of being a company that is a staple. And you can go to most people in the country and they know who you are, and hell, they've probably tried your product. So that's my goal. Obviously that comes with financial rewards and everything like that, but you only get one life. You might as well try to do something that somehow shapes the larger community.
Yeah, that's great to look at how you're looking at how a company would shape a community. And then one of my questions is, when you were a kid, what was your favorite class in school?
I was definitely a math nerd. I was pretty terrible at liberal arts. I tended to do well with things that were concept based instead of conceptual based. So, I was never, concept based instead of memorization based. So I was never great at, languages, foreign languages. I was always much better at physics than I was biology, because biology is very memorization based and physics is very mathematical and concept based. And when you understand the concepts, there's less sort of minute memorization involved. So but in general, I would say I was a pretty big math nerd. Did a little bit of programming and those kind of things, which I really enjoyed. But to this day, whether it's in the form of finance or whatever, things that are heavily mathematical, I sort of enjoy.
Yeah, that's really cool. I like how you were saying math, how you were into math and all that. So how did your parents help you be entrepreneurial when you were a kid?
Yeah, sure. So both of my parents were entrepreneurs themselves. Both of them ran their own companies of one form or another. Both of them, and multiple times over. often on sort of the consulting side where it's sort of a one-person shop or a 2 or 3-person shop, but either way, they sort of, all the same lessons still apply. And I think there was always a bit of an expectation that in the family that we were, us as children, were going to find interesting ways of living our lives, and maybe a little bit less focused on salary-based positions and things like that. And nobody ever tried to stop me from taking a riskier or going a riskier route. That's a common thing that parents are concerned about. They'll say, go be a doctor, go be a lawyer, secure your lifestyle. And that was never really the case in my family. There was much higher tolerance for risk. So I think that played into it a lot. And as a result, I have a sister and a brother, and they've both started their own companies as well. So it's definitely sort of runs in the family.
That's really cool how your family is just full of entrepreneurs. What do you do for fun now as an adult?
A lot of, a variety of things. I try to play tennis when I can. I'm an awful golfer, but I do enjoy playing with friends from time to time. I still play a little bit of lacrosse when I can. So when there's opportunities, it becomes harder and harder to find, people to do those things with as you start to get a little bit older. I'm also a really avid reader. I read a lot of economic or just world policy type magazines, and but also read a lot of books. Big nonfiction fan. I wish I had was more in tune with fiction, but for me, there's so many sort of wild and incredible stories that are based on facts and are true that those tend to pull me in a lot more than fictional stories. So yeah, reading is a pretty constant thing in my life.
Yeah, that's really cool. And do you have any tips for young entrepreneurs?
Yeah, I think the biggest one is be willing to sort of put yourself out there. Like, I think the most undertaught thing in the education system related to business in the US is how to sell. People are scared to, it has sort of a negative connotation. You think of like a used car salesman or something like that, but there is no successful entrepreneur that's not really good at selling their product. And in most positions that really help move a company forward, there's a sales component to it. And sales takes on many forms, selling to a customer, selling partnerships, selling yourself, selling a brand. All these things are incredibly important. So getting comfortable with talking to people about your ideas, getting something that's unfinished into people's hands and being willing to sort of take that criticism, you're going to get in an unfinished product. But, it's much better to get an unfinished product into somebody's hands and polish it into something good than try to build in a vacuum of not really knowing what people want and having something that you see as finished just to find out, nobody in the world wants that product. So, I would say get comfortable with getting a lot of no's because you're going to get them constantly. It's just a fact of doing business, and be willing to sort of put yourself out there.
Yeah, that's super interesting. That's a great tip because I'm a Boy Scout and I have to sell popcorn door to door. And usually it's about 50% of the time you get a yes or no. But I'm guessing that's a higher rate because I'm like a little kid. I'm smiling. Hey, you want to buy some popcorn? Support the Boy Scouts.
Yeah, being young is a huge, massively helpful thing in sales. It's something I think you can leverage until you're a couple years outside of college, and God knows I did. And then at a certain point, you're just a normal adult. Nobody cares anymore. So use your youth to your advantage.
I like that. Are there any opportunities for kids who are interested in entrepreneurship to learn about a little bit more what you do? Like, for example, classes in high school about entrepreneurship, anything like that?
Yeah, sure. So, in the greater education system, you're seeing more and more of that stuff, especially in universities. Um, but, what I would say is that my team tries to help people, and, I enjoy talking to people. So, especially people that are, trying to become entrepreneurs themselves. So, I'll make sure that you guys get my contact information after it. But, I tell people, feel free to reach out to me, and I'll help any way I can.
That's really cool. I really like the tips and all of that. So, what are other companies or CEOs that you look up to?
Yeah. So I think with a lot of people, especially CEOs, you sort of need to compartmentalize, because there's traits of being a good CEO that, can sort of lead to certain traits of people's personalities that, may or may not be highly desirable. But, like, I think a guy like Richard Branson is a good example of somebody that seems, genuine and kind and super smart and always pushing the envelope. So I definitely, a big fan of Richard Branson. You look at an Elon Musk or a Steve Jobs, and I think there's a lot to admire there. It blows my mind the things that Elon Musk, manages to do, and how much he manages to get done on a day-to-day basis. So I really appreciate that. There's aspects of those guys' personalities that, I think are controversial, but I don't think everybody can be, a perfect representative to everybody else. But I definitely appreciate people that are, very aggressively trying to push the envelope, and those guys definitely do it.
Yeah, well, thank you very much for talking with us today. That wraps up all of our questions, and I really like all your answers, and you really explained it really, really well. I had a great time talking with you. Callum, do you have anything else to say?
Yeah, this was really fun asking you questions and hearing your tips and all of your stuff that you were saying. It's very interesting, and I think a lot of people are interested by that.
Well, I appreciate you guys having me on today, and feel free to reach out anytime, and I'll send you guys my contact information so anybody listening can get a hold of me.
Yeah, thank you very much, and we will end it there. Thank you so much, Zesty, for sponsoring today's episode. Do not forget to check them out at zesty.com. They have delicious tea, and I love their tea.
And do not forget to enter this month's tea giveaway. More information to that will be in the description below.
Follow our Instagram for bloopers and behind the scenes. We just hit over 30 followers, and it's great. Check that out.
And thank you for watching today's episode. We will see you next Wednesday.
Bye.
Goodbye.